stories. I never saw Siegfried and Roy, but I know what night I wish I had gone to see them, so I could have said, I was there the night when. Well, you guys are here the night when. And I'm going to do something very singular and special tonight that, God willing, I will never have to do again in this life. So, going back to the song, you gave so much yet couldn't take away. Even though your sheep had gone astray, you always knew that there would come a day, and I'd say, Lord, hey, show me the way. You gave so much yet couldn't take away. Even though your sheep had gone astray, you always knew that there would come a day, and I'd say, Lord, hey, show me the way. Now I'm saying, Lord, hey, show me the way. You gave so much, yet you couldn't take away. You gave so much that you couldn't take away. Even though your sheep had gone astray, you always knew that there would come a day when I'd say, Lord, hey, show me the way. Now I'm saying, Lord, hey, show me the way. 19 years old, I had just accepted Christ. Hours later, I went home, I was up, I was so excited, so confused, scared, happy, just every possible feeling known to mankind, and the only thing I knew to do was sit down at that piano and write that song. I sat down and I barked out that song and been performing it ever since. Yeah, I guess if I had known I was going to be performing it for the rest of my life, I would have written something a little cooler. But I don't think there's a more honest, this is what it feels like to have just come to the Lord song I've ever heard. And I say that with all humility. I hear it over and over again when I'm saying in the song, I'm like, wow, you really know what just happened to you, Paisley. You really know. You totally knew at 19 what had just occurred in your life. And did I mention I was 19? My new record that comes out next week is The Liberal Soul. And the liberal soul is a proverb that says the liberal soul will be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself, saying, if you give and you feed people, God is going to sustain you. And then the next proverb that I used in the song says, in much wisdom is much pain, and he that increases wisdom increases sorrow as well. That it's impossible to grow close to the Lord and not become a sadder person. These people that go on and on just being the happiest people who know Jesus, I'm like, I don't know who you know, because the closer I get to Him, the further away you all look. And that makes me very sad. But I don't mean just you guys in the room, or specifically you guys in the room. How about if we say, my kids, how about your kids, how about our friends, how about the people we see every day? And I didn't mean to insinuate anything about my own children, but did I mention I was 19 when I came to the Lord? I have a 19-year-old son now. I really know what 19 was for me. Know what I'm saying? I know what 19 meant to me. And I think most people will remember their 19th year of life. But the more I serve the Lord, the more painful it becomes to serve the Lord, to know the Lord. Anyone who spends a lot of time with me knows that I'm very vocal about what I feel all the time. So if someone ticks me off, I'll say something, you know, that person really ticks me off. That's usually not how I say it. Y'all heard what I said about Jimmy Swaggart earlier. So now I'm really vocal because I feel constantly squeezed like a grape being close to the Lord. I feel like Anything I think of Phil is going to fly out of my mouth at any given time because I'm so clear on the truth. And I'm so clear how far away from the truth so many people are. And I know it takes people different ways and different styles to walk with Jesus. But I know the difference between people who do and people who don't. And the worst case scenario are the people who think they do and don't. That's the scariest group of people on the planet. Because it's very hard to convince someone who thinks they're a Christian that they're not. Because obviously a lot of people come after me and tell me I'm not a Christian, so I know what it feels like. Did I mention I was 19? Did I mention I had a 19-year-old son? Alright, I just want to make sure that I've said that at least once or twice. Well, I was doing some performances in Kingman, Arizona years back. And a friend of mine, my partner in this ministry at the time, came to me and said, there's people here to see you. And I go, that's great. He goes, no. They're not going to stay for your show. But they want to meet you, and if you could counsel them. You know, and I was like, okay. And he said, well, their 19-year-old son just got killed last night, driving home from a party. I was like, oh, okay. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Yeah, ministry is happy. It's so joyous and peaceful to know the Lord. You know what? If I were to start going off with platitudes about the hope of my salvation at that moment, I'd be saying, thank God it's not me. Thank God I know that if I die in a car accident and I'm going to heaven. I think a lot of times we use Christian platitudes very selfishly. What about weep with those who weep? Weeping is not fun. I don't know about you, but I cry really gross. I'm really snotty and phlegmy, and my eyes get really puffy. And then the whole next day, my eyes are big and puffy, and I have a hoarse voice. So if I were obedient for all the people that I talk to that weep in this life, I'd look like Jabba the Hutt. But it's okay. We'll just stay in our peace and our serenity prayers and walk with Jesus safely. But in the meantime, I'm about to perform. And by the way, you know, these performances aren't safe. I'm not doing safe music. I'm not performing in safe environments. I'm out in the streets. I'm out in public places, and I'm poking all kinds of buttons on purpose, trying to get people to pay attention, trying to get people to think. Okay, but before you do all that, why don't, instead of sitting in your dressing room and meditating and finding your inner self and finding your inner Jesus and counting your green M&Ms, no, why don't you go out and talk to someone whose 19-year-old kid just died? And then, okay, then go out and prance around for Jesus tonight, Paisley. So I went and talked to these people, and I'm thinking, do I want them to ever see this? Do I not want them to see what I'm going to say right now? I don't know. But anyone who knows me knows it's going to come out sooner or later. It was really scary. It was really scary. That was a very scary ministry moment. And mind you, it was a pastor that got me to do it. He knew them. But for some reason, they were requesting Paisley. So they got Paisley. What do you say? Exactly. That's what I said. A lot of nothing. I think I said I was sorry. I think I cried. I think I said this is humiliating and embarrassing for me, that I have no idea what anyone can say to you. So I can only say the only word I know that applies to this, Jesus. And you're going to have to find out what that means. Somehow, some way, you're going to find out what Jesus means in all this. And I pray to God, you're the only people that I ever meet in my life that find that out. Especially me. Especially, you know, back, that was years ago, so, you know, my kids were younger. Horrifying. I've stayed friends with them, and their testimony is extraordinary. I don't want their ministry. I don't want their testimony. I don't want to be them when I grow up. I don't want to be these strong, amazing people that survive the death of a teenage child. I don't want to be them. I mentioned that their kid was 19, and I was 19 when I came to the Lord, and I have a 19-year-old son. I want 19 to pass. Everyone says, I want my kids to get to 18, I want my kids to get to 20. You know what I'm saying? I just want to see them make it to 18. I want to see my kids get to 20, and then maybe I can get through a whole night without throwing up in my sleep. But 19 is 19. Well, yesterday, I don't know, what time was it yesterday? It feels like sometime in the last 2 days, I got news that a young man of the age of, who was very close friends with my son when we lived in Nevada, died in a car accident the other night. And I need to say this. I don't have to fall apart in front of people to get pathos across, but I will tell you, I do not want to continue talking about what I'm talking about tonight. I don't want to do it. You know, anyone who knows me knows that I do everything from a place of strength and authority. I sing really painful songs, but I'm on the other side of them. But occasionally, ministry doesn't give me that right. Occasionally, something happens and I'm in it while it's happening. So, a 19-year-old boy gets into a car accident at 3:30 in the morning. See, I said another 19-year-old boy was coming back from a party and everybody thought he must have been drunk. Now I'll say this kid was 19 and it was 3:30 in the morning. I will tell you that first kid had no history of drinking, the kid in Kingman. There was no history of him, you know, that it was just a plain old car accident. To this day, that's what pretty much is assumed. But of course now the rumors are swirling around this kid that he was more of a troubled kid, that he'd been talking about killing himself. There's all kinds of stories going around. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt when he got into his accident, but his passenger was. His passenger is completely unharmed. Who cares? A 19-year-old boy came to Jesus and started an amazing life in the Lord and had children, had a ministry, had a pit bull that has to be checked on during church, you know, had stuff. And two other 19-year-old boys, their lives ended that day. Very radical. Wrong. Where's God in all this? I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. We are not given the right to question how God handles circumstances, period. He made us, we didn't make him. I was saying that today to someone that, you know, I always get the, how can a loving God, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what if he's a hateful God? He's still God and you don't really have the right to challenge him. So it's really none of your business if he's loving or hateful. Really. Well, if he's not loving, I don't want him. Well, you know what? That's not your choice either. You're either going to live life and eternity with him or live life and eternity without him. But you're not going to create a third choice for yourself. You don't get to do that. And we don't get to do that when bad things happen. We do not get to challenge God. And the dumbest thing to do is to lose hold of Christ when something bad happens, because that's the only thing we have that can make any sense of this stuff. I have a 19-year-old son. This stuff scares me. I've told my kids over and over again, I'll tell you how this works. Your generation, your friends, your memory of kids that you knew growing up, you will play one of two roles. You will either be one of the kids that dies, that everyone remembers, or you'll be one of the kids that remember someone who died. What you won't have happen is not have this experience. You know, they've had other friends that were killed, people that have gotten really sick, and they've had suicides in their young lives. It's part of what people experience in life. That's the truth. So when our teenagers are going out and they're just doing whatever, we did the same thing, I understand. But one day, they're going to get bad news or they're going to be bad news, and that is the facts. That's the law. There's no way around that. There's no one today that's going to go through life unscathed by the death of someone in their age group before they're old enough to legally be drinking and driving. This was a sweet boy. And I thought about how I would describe him, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to describe him the way I want to, because every identifiable thing I would say about him would be inappropriate in someone's mind. But anyone who knew him and knew me at the time knows how much we all loved this kid. He was the sweetest kid. He would come over and he always smiled. And he always called me Mr. Yankolovich. I said, you can call me Paisley. He goes, no, Mr. Yankolovich. You know, he was very sweet, very well-mannered, a great kid. We don't want to see him grow up to be the one who flips his car at 3:30 in the morning and dies at 19. The rumors will circulate. We'll never really know what happened. Someone will come up with the final story, and that's what people will believe in. And then we'll move on to the next tragedy, basically. And I'm not a funeral guy. I don't like going to them. I mean, someone will always say, well, no one likes going to them. No, you don't understand. If I don't have to go, I won't go. I don't think I should be forced to go to funerals. I feel the same thing about weddings. I don't feel like I should be forced to go to weddings. These are rituals that I did not sign on for. So the Lord has to compel me to participate in certain things that I'm not comfortable with. So, you know, doing a memorial service for a 19-year-old boy would not be something I'm going to turn my evening into. But I will say that this cuts a little too close to the bone for me not to think that maybe I should stop and think about this a little bit. That maybe there's something here of the Lord to learn and to share. And I'm not going to land on tell your loved ones you love them every day, because you never know when it's going to be their last day. Because first off, I know the people in the room we all look pretty smart. I probably already know stuff like that. But I'm going to respect the people out in TV land and say the same thing, that if you guys haven't gotten that yet, you're not ready for what I'm about to say. So, you know, you may want to turn this off and go find people to love, and then come back when you're ready to hear, do not live your life without Jesus. And if you have Jesus, don't let other people live their life without Jesus. Because there is a very hard, cold world out there that is run by a force that spends all his existence trying to kill us off. And I need to tell you, your children, our children, everyone's children, not just my children, when I say our, I mean the human race's children, are drinking and experimenting with drugs and sex, and they're out and they're lying about where they're at, and they're doing all kinds of stuff that we swore our kids wouldn't do because we did it and knew it was bad. Or we didn't do it because we respected the Lord, and our kids are going to say, well, you know, that didn't happen. They're all doing it, and you have to go through life assuming they're doing it because you can't serve them if you pretend they're not being faced with these influences. And I will sleep just fine tonight knowing that I let my kids know about Jesus, and I let them know how much God loves them, and I let them know how much I love them and how much I worry about them. And that when this happens, all I can see is their faces. That's all I can see is their faces. You know, and I'm going to post the YouTube link of this sermon to their Facebooks. You know what I'm saying? And I don't do that. Anyone knows me knows I let people know the stuff's out there, but I don't, like, you're not going to find me posting my stuff in your private, inboxes on your social networks. But I do want my kids to know what I said about their friend. I do want them to know how I reacted to it and how I grafted it into my ministry. Because it is my ministry. See, my ministry is my testimony, and my testimony is my life in the Lord. And my life in the Lord has been touched by too many teenagers at 19 dying. Too many that I can think of off the top of my head. But I know hundreds of young people who have died in this life through partying and alcohol and accidental overdoses and suicides and being abducted, being murdered. I mean, I know too many people, and one's enough, none's enough. Jesus died violently, that's enough. One person dying violently named Jesus is enough for us to say no one else has to. Have you ever heard that sermon? Because Jesus died on the cross for our sins, you don't have to? How many times have we heard that in Christianity? Has anyone ever said, because one person died violently, no one else should die violently ever again because of their reckless behavior, because of this evil, awful world? Isn't it bad enough that we have to get old and wither and die in the first place? Do we have to add our kids dying in car accidents to the mix? Kids committing suicide to the mix? Kids being abused by their parents to the point of dying from it to the mix? I mean, on and on and on. Well, Paisley, you're a downer. I am a downer. I'm down. I'm down. Excuse me. Explain to me in my Christianity, where is the skip in my walk today? I was here for the musical portion of this. I was up. But at the same time, I'm carrying an enormous weight of agony over something that I can't fix. I know this kid's parents. I can see what their faces look like. I know what pain they're in. And yet I can't even fathom it, thank you, Jesus, because it's better them than me. Gosh, they're going to see that. Isn't that nice? But it's the truth. That's what they're going to see in everyone's eyes. No matter how much people cry with them, no matter how many people show up for a funeral, they're going to be in a room full of people that are all secretly going, better them than me. Wow. Let's go to better Jesus than me and go back to the violent death on the cross thing and say, better him than me. Amen? That's the only one we get to do it. Better him than me. Oh, except that he said something about, are you ready to take up your cross? Are you ready to suffer the same crucifixion? Are you ready to go through the same fire? I mean, I don't think anyone gets off the suffering for other people hook. So today's my day. I get to suffer for other people. You know what? Don't feel sorry for my pain about this, please. Not a speck. I'll get over it. Pray for this kid's parents. Pray for his parents. I can't even imagine the guilt parents feel when they lose a child. I can't even, even if they're perfect. Imagine all the, well, if only I had, what if I had, that one time it all comes flooding back. I really want a history of trying to come flooding back in situations like this. Because I'm doing it right now. I'm thinking about my kids. Wow, I didn't really lead them to the Lord as well as I expected. They didn't turn out to be exactly as I expected. They're their own people. They're their own people, and they have to make their own decisions, and they're not going to become little Paisley robots. They're going to become free-thinking, intelligent, educated people that have to make a free will choice, not just accept the Lord, because it's very easy to get your kids to accept the Lord, but to take up their cross. It's funny because I want them to watch this, and I probably just said something that's going to read to them, you didn't turn out the way I wanted you to. Just for the record, I didn't turn out the way they wanted me to either. You know what I'm saying? That's part of being alive. People do not live up to your expectations. They live up to their own expectations to the best that they can, and usually they're beating themselves up enough for who they became that you don't have to add to it, kids. And I'm sure my kids are going, and you too, Dad. We're doing the best we can, so don't add to it. Don't add to it. But in the end, I have no conscience. I have no conscience whatsoever about having gotten on people's nerves, having pushed too hard to get people to come to the Lord, to have not backed off when people said, okay, okay, enough's enough. I really have no conscience about it. If you want to say, well, you're bullying people into the kingdom, I'll say, you can call it whatever you want. I was bullied into the kingdom. The woman who led me to the Lord bullied me into the kingdom, and I love her. Because I was the only person that tried, and she refused to stop. She refused to stop bringing up the Lord. I'd say, pass me a pencil. She said, well, Jesus is Lord. Now you can have a pencil. I mean, that's what she was like. Anyone who's met her knows she's really like this. She's excruciating. The most excruciating, obnoxious person I've ever met, and that's why I'm a Christian. Just to shut her up. You know, at some point, we have to remember, we're saved. We are born again. We are the kids of the kingdom. We are princes and princesses, and in my case, kind of both. We are the ones. Well, how do regal people act? They know the difference between them and commoners. Let's be fair. I don't see non-Christians as commoners, but if I saw them as Gentiles, sue me. Now, I'm a Jew who became a Christian, so to me, Gentile means anyone who doesn't follow the true and correct God. And if I said, I'm not a Gentile anymore, well, you weren't to begin with. Yes, I was. I was. I happen to be of Jewish culture, but I was a Gentile. Now I'm a Jew. You guys have all been grafted into my family. You've all been grafted into my family. And anyone knows me knows I've never pulled my authority over this, but it's true authority. I'm just saying what the Bible says about all this stuff. But the bottom line is I care more about your soul than your flesh. I really do. I care much more about your soul than your flesh. Had someone recently write me email after email about how horrible their life was, how horrible their money was, how horrible their health was, that they tried to commit suicide, that they were in the hospital, that they were in an institution, that they were this, they were this, they were this, they were this. And they said, you know, you're a Christian and I figure I could tell you this, but, you know, I don't want anything to do with God because, you know, why would God let this happen to me? And I wrote back and I said, you know what? Forgive me, but I'm going to just say you're stupid. I would drink cod liver oil if it would help my finances. I really would. I would drink cod liver oil if it would make my kids be perfect and live forever and never have harm or danger come into their path. I would do anything. I would try anything. You know, there's an old wives' tale that you can't get pregnant if you plant a potato. I've been planting potatoes for years and I've never been pregnant. I would try anything. Just ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? People get sick and they have an inoperable brain tumor and all of a sudden they're going to witch doctors. And I say to people, I say, you're so stupid. Everything is wrong in your life. Why not try Jesus? It can't be any worse than what you're trying right now. It can't work any worse. You know what I'm saying? What if I told you, what if I told you if you go outside and spin around 3 times and say Oompa Loompa, your life will be fixed. People are more apt to try that than to pray to Jesus. I said, you're just stupid. Try Jesus. Try Jesus. And I sat there and I hit send. And I was like, well, what kind of response am I going to get for that? That was kind of rude, Paisley. Well, I was in a rude mood. Yeah, you got to think about this. If you serve the Lord and it's 24/7 and you're always in it, if someone gets the butt end of that, maybe that's God's plan. Maybe it's God's plan that they don't get your best Jesus self. And this person wrote back and said, I really see your perspective. They responded really well to your stupid. Praise the Lord. Do I love this person? Sounds like it. I cared enough to risk them being mad at me for telling what I really thought about them. Sometimes that's what love is. It's just looking someone in the eye and saying, you can do whatever you want, but the life you're living isn't working for you. And sometimes 19-year-old kids flip their car and die. Sometimes your friends try to commit suicide and succeed. Sometimes it just doesn't get better on its own. And sometimes this is the last chance you're going to have to hear this. And I know for me personally that my ministry has entirely, for 30 years, meaning I started it when I was 4, has been entirely your last chance ministry. It always has been. I prayed one day, I said, Lord, show me what my ministry looks like to you. And I expected a room full of angels. Of course, they all had like guyliner and tattoos and stuff, and piercings. Nope. God showed me the emergency room after a major plane crash, as parts of bodies were being brought in and half people were still alive moaning, begging to die because they were miserable. And he showed me a place filled with blood and misery. And he said, your ministry, this is who you see. This is who you talk to about me. How are you going to handle it then? Are you going to walk around the room and beg people to just give you the time of day? Are you going to sing Lord over and over again and not talk about anything deeper than your sheep had gone astray? What